welcome to Badger State Ball. We've got a pretty exciting time of year because showcases are starting, and I feel like once the showcases start, we lead straight into the spring season, and this is really where things get going. So I wanted to toss it to the people who know a little bit more about the showcases that are going on around the state. Vinny, could you fill our listeners in on what these showcases are and their importance in helping you get seen at the next level?
So before I do that, David, I wanted to just go ahead and thank you and point out the fact that you are taking another job in Appleton as a news reporter for a TV station in Appleton. And I just wanted to thank you for your service, not only with this podcast, but just around the state of Wisconsin at Prep Baseball here, and what you've helped and how you've helped build the brand of Prep Baseball, and also help a number of different players around the state in your service here with Prep Baseball. So couldn't thank you enough. You are a talented guy, and you're going to have a very bright career. We'll see you on Sports Center, I'm sure, at some point someday. But thanks so much for all you have done here at Prep Baseball Wisconsin.
Yeah, thank you, David. I mean, this was always like a talk of ours, is like getting a podcast off the ground in Wisconsin and stuff. And, you know, one thing gets in the way here or there, but like David was like integral to just getting this thing finally up and going. And like, I feel like we have some momentum here for the first time, like coming out of this with this headed into the showcase season. But we'll miss David, but just like, you know, huge part to just helping make this happen, and permanent friend of the show. And, you know, hopefully we'll cross paths again. But yeah, appreciate it, David. Good luck in Appleton.
Well, I appreciate it, guys. I'm certainly going to miss being on the show.
Yep, and yeah, we'll somehow try and piece together a professional sounding podcast without you. But I did want to just point out that showcase season is upon us, everybody. So if you are not registered for an event currently, please do that. The whole point of the showcase season is to go ahead and be seen, and then we're going to go ahead and shine that spotlight on you as a player, and it's going to help you get to that next level. There are so many different examples around the state where we may not have seen a player and they were good enough to play at the next level, but there was no opportunity to identify that player, and that's what these showcases are for in the winter, the preseason IDs. That's exactly the function of the showcase season in the winter, is the ID part, the identification part, so we can go ahead and get hyper-local with our scouting coverage during the spring and summer season. So go ahead and get to an event. There's going to be an event pretty much every weekend from here until the end of March.
You're listening to the Badger State Ball Podcast with Prep Baseball Wisconsin, breaking down the top high school prospects and featuring all things college baseball recruiting in a changing world. Hosted by Vinny Rotino, Josh Fields, and Andy Sroka, this is Badger State Ball.
We still have this episode to record with a great interview, and we've brought on Shooter Hunt. Shooter oversees scouting at a national level for Prep Baseball. And so, Shooter, thanks for joining us today.
Thanks for having me, guys. Always been looking forward to getting on this Wisconsin. I wasn't sure if I was going to get some cheese curds, maybe a couple adult beverages later, a couple of brew pubs. There we go.
Yeah, for sure.
Do you think we could set that up later?
Yeah.
Without a doubt. Appleton, I'll come watch a Timber Rattlers game with you. We'll sit up in the stands this summer.
Perfect. And you could come for the state championships.
Oh, yeah,
even better.
Yep,
state championships right over there.
Yeah.
So that would be perfect. But we just got done with the Super 60. It's one of, if not maybe the biggest event of the year for Prep Baseball. So, Shooter, could you just fill us in a little bit on how big of an event the Super 60 is as a showcase?
Well, just the growth of it really kicks off the draft season. This year for those 2025s, over 100 MLB scouts, scouting directors, cross-checkers, special assistants, area guys. Like, it's almost like a convention for everybody to kick off the season. First look, the draft talent, where are these guys at? What off-season progressions have they made? Who do I need to go see this spring? That's kind of what the Super 60 does. And I think this year is about 70 guys at it, really put on a show, especially coming off of last year where more than $17 million in signing bonuses, which actually does not include a Brewers pick, Chris Livonis, right, who probably turned down a significant amount of money to go to Wake Forest, along with Tyler Bello did the same thing going to Kentucky. So it would have been $20+ million from the event last year. 19 guys drafted, close to a third of the players. It's just really growing. This is the 23rd year into the point where everybody wants to come coast to coast. I think we had the most ever from Georgia and Florida this year, guys who wanted to come up, show off their stuff before they're going right into season. Actually, I'm going to see a guy down here in Florida this week already, which I'm sure is hard for you guys to believe that they're in season down here.
It is, yeah. It is.
In how many?
It seems impossible, actually, that there's baseball.
And Shooter, talk a little bit too about the fact that some guys are already in season in California and Texas and Florida, and are not able to make it, or maybe their advisor advises them, "Hey, we don't necessarily want you to throw, right now off of the mound at this event." So there is opportunities for other guys to pop at the event that wouldn't necessarily be invited if some of the other top rated guys are, and all of a sudden they do pop, and then they go ahead and put themselves on the map.
Yeah, and I always think about like growing up, one of my favorite quotes was like, luck is when opportunity meets preparation, right? So Southern California, Florida kid, you don't want to come. To me, it's always like, I don't care, because I know somebody from Illinois, somebody from Wisconsin is going to show up and they're going to steal the show, because who is this guy who just needed to be seen? And this event kind of puts the spotlight on those guys. So it's just a lot of times it's next man up. And historically, what I've seen now going through data, especially in recent years, these cold weather arms especially have really jumped up the board, right? Hey, these guys haven't thrown quite as much as these guys down south. Maybe they have that higher ceiling that they're just not now approaching, especially Illinois, Wisconsin. You guys have seen it. The draft talent coming out of the state, especially Wisconsin right now, is immense.
Yeah, we wanted to talk about a few of those players, specifically the arms, Peter Kusau and Auden Pankinen. Kusau, I mean, he's progressively gotten better as we've seen him more and more, and he was up to 95 at the Super 60 last week. I mean, is this a guy that we might see on day 1 or 2 of the draft?
I think he put himself definitely in that conversation, right? I just finished writing up the top pitchers. He was the eye-opening guy, the surprise, right? And it wasn't a surprise to you guys, the top of the class. But again, coming out of Wisconsin, there can be some rawness, right? He's still got to develop. This kind of saw him take that next step to even looking at some of his profile pictures, which were kind of humorous to go back through the years and look through, to where, hey, he's 6'5", 210. It's a good athlete. He gets down the mound. To me, and Vinny, you hit big leaguers, like, it's kind of funky. I don't want to step in the box. This pitch is coming in on those hands. He was close to 100% strikes with 3 pitches. Andy, you were telling me about the difference between the slider and the curveball. He's got even more there, but he's throwing a bullet slider, like 2,700 RPM. It's 88 to 90. Like, that's a professional pitch right there. And I would think it's only going to get better, right? This is early February. You're seeing that. I thought it was a really good changeup, profiled well against the fastball, but 3 pitches for strikes. Interviewing him the day before at Dick's Sporting Goods was really fun, because he's talking about, hey, that slider, I'll throw it any place, anywhere, any count. Get me out of bed, I will throw that for a strike. Love to hear that confidence. Learning about his sister, who can just absolutely get a bucket on the hardwood there. So he may not be the best athlete in the family, which was interesting to find out. But there's a starter profile, like, when you step in the box, it's easy to see those guys who are super clean. Oh, this is great. But sometimes super clean is just super easy to time and super easy to hit. This Kusau just hopped in the mound, like, ooh, I don't want to get in the box. This is why I became a pitcher, because I just had no chance against this guy. He'd be breaking my bats. My parents would be yelling at me for wasting wood. But it was a very important time for him to be in front of 100-plus MLB scouts, get on the map, and for them to say, hey, we need to get back to Wisconsin this spring to see where this guy goes, because I would think you may see another jump later on this spring as it warms up.
Yeah, Shooter, I'm curious, just in your conversations, maybe not specifically about Peter, but more like broadly about cold weather arms, that sort of thing, just how the conversation has maybe evolved within the last like 3, 4, 5 years. It feels like maybe there's a little bit more like trust there within like the pro scouting community to like, not necessarily like risk the reputation or anything like that, but just slamming the table a little bit more in that draft room for like a cold weather prospect, maybe a pitcher in this like right-handed profile, prep profile, a little scarier in years past, but like feels like that conversation has maybe changed a little bit. Like there's something to that. But just curious what your thoughts are there.
Without doubt, and I think the facilities and the the player facilities where they can go work out have really increased how good these guys are getting, right? The throwing programs, they're all getting on good stuff. They're working with good people. I think Alden does look great there as well. Like the ball's coming out of the hand, kind of threw him last because I love having some guys last that are going to pop, and he did a great job there. So specifically put there in the spot that he was at because that's what I thought he would do. But like you said, like these guys have a chance to make jumps, and maybe the polish isn't there, but that's something you can do in the backfield. That's something you do in the GCL, AZL. You get 200, 400 innings, whatever it may be. Hey, we'll deliver that polish, but the upside is here. This is raw talent that these guys can get to. And honestly, all these guys are throwing so hard now. To be able to throw 94, 95, 96 in a bullpen setting is just like, to me as a former pitcher, it's just wild. Like maybe in a game I'd be getting up there, but like bullpen, you're looking at 84, 85, thinking that you're gassing up. But these guys can just absolutely ball. They move really well. They understand what their pitch profiles are. They understand how to spin the baseball. They understand what this pitch is doing against that one, how to get a hitter out. And especially in the cold weather, Wisconsin is, I would say Wisconsin, almost more than anybody, is no longer a secret. Like this is a national presence. When I go to the future games, it's like, I need to know what's coming out of Wisconsin. I need to know who these guys are. And I love talking to you guys about it because you understand what a Wisconsin player looks like at 16, but especially where he will be at 22, what those jumps will be. So I do think those facilities have done a great job. You guys have done a great job identifying them.
What was so impressive to me in watching now the Super 60 for 3 years in a row, and the Wisconsin guys specifically, is their ability to perform on such a big stage. I can't even imagine what it would be like, because as a player, Shooter, you and I played professionally. It's nerve-wracking, but you get lost in competition, right? You get lost within the game. Maybe your first game, let's say, getting called up to a different level, all of a sudden you start to get a little bit nervous. But you get lost in the game. These guys are on a stage, let's say the hitters, without the turtle shell, right, in batting practice. Everyone's watching, over 100 scouts, and everybody at PBR. You even had spectators up top. All the parents were up top. And then on the mound, these guys, over 100 scouts were just surrounding these guys on the mound. And then guys, I get it, guys from like maybe a bigger profile state are not going to be as overwhelmed by a situation like that. But what was so impressive to me about the guys from Wisconsin is they weren't either, despite not probably being on that kind of a stage very often. So that was something that stood out to me. Have you found that with some of the Wisconsin guys as of late, that they're just ready to take that next step and be on a stage like that?
You guys would have to tell me, but like there is some moxie to Wisconsin kids. Like I'm thinking of like JD Dix coming in, Noah Miller, those guys, like they walk on the field. Even Carter Cutts this year, like there's some moxie to it, that expectation of success. Like we walk in, I don't know if it trickles down from the days of Jared Kelenic. There is something about it where like, I don't know what it is. I'm not from the Midwest. So like there's something about Wisconsin where it's like, yeah, we're the best. We walk in here and we do our thing, but that's how it looks.
Yeah, who epitomizes it to me, who is also a Super 60 guy, actually, is Cal Fisher. Because there's such a, like, there was such, I didn't know Cal that well, like in high school or anything like that. But I started to talk to him a little bit more his senior year. And there was such a quiet confidence with him. And I remember his Super 60 performance kind of mimicked his earlier years in high school, where it was like, just like, really good, but like metrically he wasn't the top of the board in many categories or anything, but just can really hit. Like that was just his reputation growing up. But I remember, Vinny, do you remember it was your first time, I think, at the GRB facility? Cal was helping us out.
Yep.
I think he was just helping us out with catching like the throws down from second from the catcher or
double
something.
Plays, yeah.
Yeah, turning double plays. And it was just like the most different. Like he was just quiet. He's a quiet, really nice kid. But he also happens to absolutely mash. And then he like steps up at Florida State and is like pretty productive right away as like this freshman. And now he's like, turning into this mega guy as a sophomore and stuff. But yeah, he reminds me of that, exactly what you're referring to, Shooter, is just like, yeah, I mean, I just finished up scoring like a 20 and 10 in basketball, 10 assists or something like that. And I'm just here at the Super 60 and I'm just going to keep working.
And all those shorts, I'm like thinking back now, they just have some it factor to them. And like you talk about Cal is like, hey, oh, metrically, there's some guys that are probably out there, but if you went square to square, him versus somebody like Cal Fisher's not losing. JD
Mhm.
Dix is not losing. No, Noah Miller is certainly not losing when he steps on. Like, oh, in a workout, like it didn't wow you, but like when the game's on the line, that's the dude. Like I can remember being at USA watching JD Dix, like that's the guy. I don't know why we were all watching these other four, but did you see what he just did? He like looking for those little clues in there. Like
Mhm.
even Carter Cuts, like
Yeah.
nice day at the Super 60, not going to jump off the page at that setting, but knowing background, like this guy pitches too. He's a really good athlete. Being around him, really confident kid. His game in game is where he steps up,
Yeah.
right? That's where your best stuff's going to be seen. The same as Cal Fisher, although he's also a wizard with the glove.
Yeah.
Yeah, and Josh Fields, you made that point offline about Carter Cuts. Like, yeah, not gonna go ahead and jump off the page metrically. Ran a 7:08, respectable 60-yard dash. I mean, there are guys that were running 6.5s there, unbelievable performances in athleticism that was on display on Sunday. But Fields, you talked about how good Carter Cuts is in game, and that's where he's going to show up.
Yeah, basically so. I mean, Carter Cuts, like we have mentioned, is not going to be somebody that just like jumps off the page in a workout setting, but you go to Carter Cuts because of what he can do in 4 at-bats in a game. He's going to barrel up 4 baseballs, and honestly, to me, what looked great at the Super 60 was just the movement patterns and how confident or the increased confidence he was at third and just the fluid movement operation and the swing. That's just what the most important thing for Carter was, and maybe you can elaborate on that a little more.
It's and you talk about like in a workout, we're just seeing for the first time coming out of the winter, right? Just want to make sure you're still like a living, breathing body. Everything looks good. He moved well at third base. Bat to ball's there. Again, what you guys do so well when we have our conversation, like taking what he did in the spring throughout the summer. Okay, connecting it here. Okay, this guy's going to hit. He's probably still got like 30 pounds of muscle to put on in the future. Like athletic frame, it's still going to come from there. So those are the things to walk away from the Super 60, right? Just scouting the tools, each individual. And Vinny, like being at, I talk to my brother about this all the time, like being at spring training, like guys are going to have electric stuff all the time. Hey, when the lights go on, you need to get outs or you need to get hits. Like you need to perform. So like those are things that Carter Cuts does, and that's what people will be looking for with Pete Kusau and out in this spring. Like, hey, you still need to get out, so you need to go out there and not just be a bullpen warrior.
Yeah, I was actually really impressed. Like, I'm glad you brought that up, Fields, with Cuts in the defense, because there's like a really like important level of like self-awareness, I think, when Cuts had this reputation of just being a real tough out. Like he hit in game, he hit a lot, he hits for like power and average, like checks a lot of boxes there. Great. There were some positional question marks. Like he came up as a catcher, he kind of outgrew that position. Like physically, he got pretty tall. All right, he's relatively new to the left side of the infield. Like, okay, is his future home first base? Maybe can he make third base work? All of a sudden, I actually thought his gains at like third base that he showed at Super 60 were like kind of massive, to be honest.
Yeah,
like I thought they came pretty quickly over a single like off season, in my opinion, and I thought that in itself is like a huge takeaway. Just knowing that, yeah, he knows he can hit, he'll continue to hit, all this stuff, that he was able to get as good at that position, at least in this single workout, as quickly as he did. I thought that was a huge takeaway, personally.
You mentioned interviewing Peter Kusau the day before at Dick's Sporting Goods and how you enjoyed the interview particularly. With you scouting, I mean, hundreds of players every year in each class, how do you get a read on the makeup of the player? Because we know how important that is, learning about the work ethic, what a player might be in the future. Obviously, a guy might be talented right now, but he might not be able to translate that down the road 4 or 5 years when he's maybe on the cusp of the big league. So how do you get a read on that when you're trying to rank players and figure out where they sit in terms of professional prospects?
I think a lot of it's just how comfortable you are in your own skin, right? To be able to sit up there. It's not easy as a high school kid to go sit down in an interview session or to be around, like Vinny's talking about, 150 scouts right on top of you. I always think, like, if you swing and miss at the first pitch, I always love, like, how do you react to that? Or do you just crawl into a hole and die, or do you try to get out of there and you just, kind of move on? But like talking to the kids, like, hey, how comfortable in your own skin are you? How confident are you to just be around, like, this is what I have? How attuned to you are you to, like, your pitch profile or your arsenal. Like, this is what I'm doing, this is what I'm thinking, versus like, I don't know, I just get up there and sling it and do whatever. Like those are just kind of the little things to like clue in on. How much you like baseball? Like, do you like to be at the field? Like, how much energy are you going to bring? Because when you're moving towards professional baseball, it's an everyday process. Like, and it's all year. You're going to the off season. How do I make these advancements? Are you bleeding, waking up, thinking about it? Also, like, can you get away from it? Because it can be all encompassing. And when things aren't going well, like, I know for me, like, how do I get away from the field? Like, do you have something else that you do? Do you, play guitar or like video games, whatever it may be, to where you can get a breather after an 0 for 4 day? So those are just all the things that I'm thinking about when I'm interviewing and talking to the kids. And honestly, a lot of the Wisconsin kids have always been great. I keep going back to JD Dix and was like, yeah, this kid just gets it. Like, he's like, it just had so much moxie. So,
yeah, the only thing that got me away from the anguish of an 0 for 4 day was retiring from baseball, actually. I didn't want to gloss over Auden Pankinen because I thought his performance was just outstanding. So I just want to bring him back up really quick. It was the last performance of the day. It was the last bullpen of the day. In fact, we didn't even know where he was, right? I mean, we almost lost
him. We did almost lose him.
He just walked through the middle of the bullpen session, which was outstanding. I loved it. He just casually walked up there and he just delivered one of the better performances of the day. I mean, it really was. It was 91, topped out at 94. He had a sharp little breaking ball, sharp little slider, and then a really good changeup as well to go with it. And the changeup's really good. I mean, we've seen that in game. We saw that at the senior future games last year. This kid is just quietly going to go out and get outs. And I thought he really established himself as a legitimate pro prospect after this. I think there's some buzz among the scouts. Who is that kid? We got to go see him in the spring. We heard that a bunch, and it's a really unique release height, right? It's a low release height. I think it was the lowest at the event.
Yeah, I believe it was. Yep.
And so for him, okay, so the game's changed, Shooter, right? So how much does that go into factoring these guys and how you rank them? Because it matters now. Like, that's a unique fastball. It's a unique release height, and it's deceptive to hitters. It's got a ton of run on it, and then he's got that sweeping-ish slider to go with it, and as well as a change. So he's got an arsenal to get outs at the next level. But just the little nuanced part of the release height, that matters now. And so how does that go affect how you scout guys and any adjustments that you made with all these new metrics and stuff?
I mean, I love the low slot. I mean, the most basic is like those low slot hoppy guys, high slot sink. Like, that's just like the base level of those arms. But a kid who can move the way that Auden did, and you talk about the senior future games, this kid was uncommitted going into his senior year. Like, he's in the summer and seeing the advancements he's able to do there, sticking to his plan, right? He has a good facilities as, watching videos, him doing some stuff with some pro guys, which I'm sure has really helped him try to step things up. But continue to make those advancements. And going back to like the freshman year, sophomore years, you guys are talking about preseason events and why they're so important. You see those advancements. How does this kid move? No, he's not throwing 95 miles an hour, but he moves really well. The arm's working, the metrics and the spin metrics and the all-around analytics of the TrackMan really help to develop and for us to identify guys like that. Like, this guy moves well. We know he's going to make those jumps. And you guys will bang on my door and say, like, it's coming. It's coming. Hikusao's coming. Out is coming. So, like, but anyway, getting down the mound, the low slot that he had there, the sweeper, the ability to kind of go sink to the arm side and then go sweeper away, change up like you talked about, that's 3 pitches for strikes. And it's still going to get stronger, but like, it's a pretty physical frame, especially the lower half. Like, it's kind of, I always call it like that workhorse frame. Like, it's going to grow into like, there's some sturdiness and some stability that he'll be able to work with there. And it's still developing. Like, there's still some baby to it. He's going to make some more advancements. And again, like, he's up to 94 in a bullpen in early February. Like, can you imagine catching an 80-degree day at the state final? What he's going to be juiced up there, like 97. Like, so I was amazed again. And then you talked about him, like, kind of wandering around, like the low pulse of rolling out into like at this point it's like the Blake Walters honorary last
right.
bullpen slot.
Yeah.
So like those guys who are coming in last, like you better wait around. You kind of I like to always reward the scouts who are like you're not putting away your books. Like hey, everybody's bullpen is individual. There's going to be some heat coming here late, and he did a great job out and stepping in and kind of shutting the door on the event.
Yeah, I thought that was a great call by you to put him on last because sometimes it could get a little bit like repetitive. Not, whatever. At some point you're like, oh, 95, 95, 95. But then like out with the low slot, spins it, and like he checks a lot of like interesting boxes that there weren't a lot like him, I guess is the point. So it was awesome to see him go on last and kind of take it and run with it.
Oh yeah.
Well, let's look ahead to next year. It's what's the movie line? 364 days till next year's hockey tryout. So it's about 361 days till next year's Super 60. But it's not too early to talk about it. And there are some guys from Wisconsin who will be there again. Think about the names at the top: Ben Kuglich and Dominic Santarelli, Calvin Moreau, maybe Colton Semmelman. I mean, you're obviously very familiar with that class of Wisconsin players. I mean, that's one that could be continuing this line of pro guys coming out of Wisconsin from high school, right?
Without a doubt. And like now you're bringing up those 26s. I'm like, oh, I already got to turn the page. I'm really putting the pressure on here, David. But like even that group, like they're still like sifting themselves out, right? This is a group that are all like kind of bundled up because we like them all. Who's better? This guy does this really well. This guy's different here. You talk about Semmelman, who I think he'll probably make a huge jump this summer. That was some funky stuff. I got to see him a couple of times at the end of last summer. But yeah, every year it's like who's coming out of Wisconsin. I still think I live on the West Coast, and I remember talking with some college guys a few years ago. They're like, "This Wisconsin, like this is a hidden gem," and I like looked at them and like, "There's nothing hidden about the state of Wisconsin at this point." Like everybody's coming in. Louisville's coming in. Vanderbilt's coming in. The ACC, the SEC, everybody's coming in to the former Pac-12, right? ASU was always going to get those guys. Formerly. So the Big 12 now. But yeah, that 26 group will most definitely, I'll stamp it right now. There will most definitely be a good conglomerate of Wisconsin guys at the 2026 Super 60.
That was a good call bringing those up, David. Just out of curiosity, because it felt like that trio specifically of Kuglich and Dom Santarelli and Calvin Moreau, they felt like they kind of emerged like nationally earlier than like is typical for like the Wisconsin kind of group. But does that like sound right to you? Like I don't know. Does that kind of go back to the earlier part of the conversation where it's like there's a little bit more trust there with like these cold weather guys? Like yeah, they're going to be there at the end of this, once they're graduating or so on, like at the top of this national board. But does that kind of ring a bell too?
Without a doubt. I think their production from an early age. One of the kids reclassed, didn't a 27 reclass bump up? One of those catchers.
Yep, Max.
Lassard, like he's another good one. I was actually watching Aiden Arnett, who's a Wisconsin guy, this week. He looks good. But yeah, you just expect it. Like it happens year in and year out. Like who are the guys in Wisconsin? Like when we're going through our freshman rankings, even like, hey, who are the guys? Let's get them together. And shoot, it's become like who's the shortstop, right? You can go into Wisconsin, like there's a shortstop somewhere. Who's going to be the next guy? But the expectation of success, and it's been built on the backs of these high school programs, the summer programs, the facilities, and have just done a really good job with the guys in state.
Yeah, all three of those guys are position guys, and typically the cold weather state position group guys are the ones that are kind of later to develop. And maybe that trust wouldn't be there, but now it seems as if on a national stage and even within your ranking, Shooter. And by the way, if people don't know, Shooter with his rankings nationally, pretty much beats all of the other publications here at Prep Baseball. I just wanted to point that out. All the other different publications that rank players nationally, Shooter is beat every single one of those within the last 5-10 years, whatever.
But it's not just me. We have 100 guys on the ground. Like the amount of information that I always say, like I'm one phone call away from knowing everything about amateur baseball, because you guys do such a great job at the hyper local level where it's like No pro organization can do this. Nobody can because of how hyper local we are. A single phone call will know it. So like it's kudos to all the boots on the ground that make me look good at the front of the camera.
Well, I wanted to bring up something that probably us local cheesers don't know about Shooter Hunt, is that his brother, Casey Hunt, was the Brewers minor league pitcher of the year last year, co-minor league pitcher of the year last year with Craig Yoho, who happened to be, I think they were roommates, you said.
Oh, yeah.
Coming up. But talk a little bit about your brother. I actually didn't know this. I mean, as many years as we've known each other now, Shooter, I actually didn't know that your brother was KC up until a few months ago. So, yeah, that is such a cool little nugget. And talk a little bit about your brother. And he signed as a non-drafted free agent, and go into his background a little bit and how he's going to be helping the Brewers out probably this year at the major league level.
Well, he's much cooler than me. He's got much better flow. I say it every time. I'm like, why is he good? Well, he's intense but relaxed. So like he's much cooler, able to slow things down, loves the big moment. But no, he had a great year. Like the Brewers system, I'm so glad that he was able to get into the system. You guys obviously know it well, what they've been able to do with pitchers. Even that like Cooper Pratt, I think is going to be an absolute superstar. What a pick. Churio, like love the direction. Pat Murphy was a guy I can remember going on my college visit to ASU and sitting with Murph and like just loving it. He's a huge Springsteen guy. I'm from Jersey, so like I love that about him. But no, Casey, like really blessed to be with the Brewers. Like you talk about him and Yoho were like non-factors, right? Craig Yoho at IU like didn't even have a locker in the locker room. Like, and now this guy's probably going to have a chance to break with the big club out of spring. And then no, Casey, I'm proud of him for working his way. He's been through a lot of stuff throughout college. The SEC's no joke. Kind of got away from that, was able to get into a new surrounding and really flourish. And I'm hoping that 25 is not just as good as 24, but beyond. And he loves to win. That's like the best thing about him is like, I think he threw, and me as brother, right? Late in the year, they're in the playoff with Biloxi, and he threw in a playoff game. He's thrown like 100 innings, which is more than he threw his entire collegiate career combined. And like he's still going out there and competing like on fumes. And that's just what I love about him is like he's out there to compete and like is not going to take any, from anybody.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, 8.54 ERA his senior year at Mississippi State. Go into his background a little bit and how he got signed. Again, as a non-drafted free agent, as a 22-year-old, he got sent out, signed by the Brewers, and then sent out. Like, go into that a little bit. I'm guessing he got plucked out of the Collegiate Summer League as he had some success there. But yeah. And maybe, Shooter, we talk about this all the time for players that are listening and coaches and parents that are listening to how important it is to find a good fit at that next level. Mississippi State, like, was it a good, like, give us a little bit of that because, again, he didn't have success, and yet now he is absolutely dominating in professional baseball and is going to pitch in the big leagues sometime in the near future.
It's tough. Like the SEC, you got to be ready now. It's a difficult place to be. COVID was different. There were a lot of guys there. I mean, the won a national title. It was a great experience, but like the SEC, like the strike zone's about that big. So it can be tough. And I guess now I'm like even more an apologist of like, hey, there's some of these arms and this is what the scouts do so well, right? These area guys who go in, like they wait around in a blowout game to see who's coming in. Maybe you can do something with this. These metrics, the analytics departments that can go through. But the best thing about Casey, like he never lost the confidence. Like, hey, I have this stuff. Like things will work, and it's really difficult to do, right? To kind of get punched in the face and keep getting up. So as big brother, I'm really proud of what he did last year because it's not easy. Like it was easy for me. Like, oh, hey, I'm great. Like I hop in the mound collegiately, everything was awesome, and like get punched in the face and kind of stay down versus, hey, okay, LSU took me for a ride. Now I got to go to A&M, stepping up, and then, okay, the Brewers, I got to be in, I think he was in the AZL when he signed, right? 22, coming out of the bullpen with a bunch of 17, 18-year-olds. Like, okay, hey, each day, and I always think like Tom Brady, like, get this rep. If I'm only in for one rep, that's going to be my best one. If I'm in for 10, that's my best one. And like I talked about earlier with all these guys' bullpens, when the lights come on, get outs. That's what it comes down to. Throw strikes, get outs, and you'll keep moving.
Well, he's an honorary Wisconsinite, I think, because that his path, I feel like, to success here in pro ball is very. Maybe I'm just thinking of Vinny and his pen, but the undrafted like guy who goes on to just throw a ton of strikes and compete in pro ball and eventually get a shot. I feel like that's very Wisconsin-y. So.
And you know what I love right now is like I love the colors of the Brewers, and they got a lot of good gear and stuff. So I can't wait to be rocking all of that. So and even the minor league teams like the Timber Rattlers got great hats. The Shuckers are all like it's a great system to be in, especially for my gear wearing.
Well, small world because that's the market that David's going to is Appleton, where the Timber Rattlers are. So small baseball world.
There you go.
Yeah.
What in 2019? He was a 2019 grad. What was the family Thanksgiving like when you ranked 85 guys ahead of him in the draft board?
I probably told him you're too high still. You're lucky that you're up here.
Yeah.
You stink. I probably said stuff like that, and I probably still would say it to him that my stuff's better than his. I'll step on the mound today and I'll outthrow him.
That's awesome.
Thanks for this was awesome. Shooter, can't thank you enough. Thanks for coming on. This is going to be very helpful and just entertaining and insightful on some of the guys in Wisconsin and the Super 60 more on the national stage. And just keep up the great work, Shooter. Again, like there's nobody better that ranks players better and is a better scout than Shooter Hunt. I mean, I was a pro scout for 4 years for the Texas Rangers, so I rubbed elbows with some of the best talent evaluators in the country, and Shooter is right up there. So be sure to go ahead and listen to his stuff, his podcasts, and read every single article you can that Shooter puts out and all the rankings, because it's phenomenal stuff.
Well, I appreciate that, and I'm looking forward to these preseason events. Like I can still picture each year those facilities, and like the preseason events are so important for us, especially for the underclassmen, like 27s and 28s, like getting on the radar. Hey, I need to get out this spring to see this guy, or June hits. Those college guys are looking where I need to go. And you guys know the phone calls, who do I need to see? Because they're focused on their team all spring. And then I get the phone calls right around Memorial Day. Like, all right, who do I need to go see? Well, like this guy was 88 and 90. I saw him at the GRB facility. I saw him at Hitter Sticks, whatever it may have been. Like, I picture those preseason events, and I pepper you guys with questions yearly. So I can't wait to see what comes out of that. And looking forward to following you guys all spring, especially you, David, at the state final. You better be there.
Yeah, the invitation's open if you want to come watch maybe Kusau or Pankinen throw at state. Kusau threw last year, so maybe we'll see him again.
Only if there's cheese curds in the mix.
There will be.
Okay.
There will be. Awesome.
Well, Shooter, thanks for joining us. We really enjoyed the conversation, and yeah, as Vinny said, wealth of knowledge on not only on the whole country, but Wisconsin even though you're covering the whole country. So thanks for joining us today.
Yeah, thanks.
Thank you guys so much.
Thanks, Shooter.
Before we go, we wanted to highlight some commitments around the state and the Rotino report as usual. Congratulations to Cam Carter from Arrowhead. He's a 2026, one of the higher-ranked arms in the state. He committed to University of Illinois at Chicago, and I know he had some incredible performances over last summer and fall. So a great arm headed down to Chicago. And then Nick Hirsch from Hudson, he's a 2025, and he committed to Wabash Valley, a good junior college there in central southern Illinois. So congratulations to both of those guys on their college commitments. And Vinny, you want to highlight an uncommitted player, or this time it's a JUCO guy who's uncommitted at the next level. So who is today's player you want to highlight on the Rotino report?
Yeah, this is a very, very exciting arm in Sean Dooley. He currently goes to McHenry County Junior College. He was a 2024 grad last year. He was ranked 127th in the state, but that's just because we didn't see him. Kudos to Josh Fields for finding him last fall. So it was a year ago, September, where we actually got a chance to, or Josh got a chance to take a look at his arm. He was up to 87 that day. And the thing that jumps out of the page when you watch, or out of the screen when you watch Sean Dooley, is the fact that he can really, really spin a nasty breaking ball. He's got two different versions of it. They blend a little bit together, but the curveball and the slider, up to 80 miles per hour, up to 2,700 RPM spin rate. So the thing is just a yacker. It just from top to bottom. It's got two-plane nasty tilt, swing and miss pitch. It's a definite secondary weapon for Sean Dooley. He's up to 91 with the fastball as well. The changeup is still developing, but he's at McHenry JUCO. He's going to stay there for a couple of years and watch how they develop this kid, because at the end of the day, he is going to be a very highly touted and highly sought-after arm at the next level from Palmyra Eagle High School, like I said. But, again, this is a situation where if we would have seen him at a showcase, he would have been ranked way higher, but kudos to McHenry for finding this kid, because he is going to be a very good one, not only at McHenry College, but at the next level.
Yeah, an excellent arm and someone that we're excited to see this JUCO season. If you guys aren't familiar, we do a lot of JUCO coverage in addition to our high school coverage, especially with the JUCO season starting already in the next couple of weeks. That's going to do it for today's episode. As always, you can find us on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts. Leave a review. And I won't repeat it because we've got this fantastic new intro and exit from Jeff Levering, the Brewers broadcaster. And so I'll let him say it. I'll let him tell you why you should at the end here. But as always, as we sign off, let's bring back Badger baseball.
Thanks for listening to the Badger State Ball Podcast. To keep tabs on our latest events, rankings, and coverage, subscribe or follow the show on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, or Spotify, and follow us over at PrepBaseballWI on X and at PrepBaseballReport.com/Wisconsin. Until next time.